Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started. Good evening and welcome back to the Bone, the podcast that covers everything touching athletic training. Yes, everything touching. No, not that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, hey, it's Randy Daly. I am the proud father of Shelby Daly, your hostess with the mostest here on To the Bone. And this is a podcast that talks about virtually anything touching, no joke this time, but everything touching athletic training. So we start out with the very basics, obviously skeletal, muscle, all that stuff. And then from there, we go out to, well, how do you do this as a business? How do you do this as a profession? What does it take to be a really good athletic trainer? And so what we do is we talk to athletic trainers who are really good. And with us today, oh my God, a really good athletic trainer. It's David Jack. Now, David Jack is ATC from Los Angeles, California. He is the director, I don't know, maybe on a Thursday it's a director of partnership of Rapid Reboot. So welcome to the podcast, David. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. Hey, so how's the weather in LA right now where you're at?
LA is probably pretty good. I'm actually in Utah right now where we're based out of. I moved out here a little while ago, but spent a lot of time in LA.
All right. I apologize. I didn't get the update on the memo.
All good. All right. Good.
And besides, you're probably breathing a lot better than they are in LA right now anyway.
Yeah, we got pretty good air right now, and I enjoy it up here during the winter.
Outstanding. All right. So Rapid Reboot. Give us a quick, the 30-second elevator pitch on what is Rapid Reboot.
So Rapid Reboot is a pneumatic compression device company focusing on, recovery for athletics. It was founded by David Johnson, 2016, 2017, which is when I got introduced to it as a practicing athletic trainer in the college football setting. But he was running Ironmans and decided, as he was sitting in some compression boots after an Ironman, there's got to be a way to make this better. And as an engineer, that's where his mind goes, is how can I do this and make it better? And so he decided to start Rapid Reboot, and kind of over the course of a few years was able to build some really great products from kind of the base classic models to what we have now.
All right. So to give an update to folks who don't really aren't maybe into that piece of the hardware, the compression boot is basically a flexible boot with multiple air chambers in it that has a compressor, an air compressor, little electric air compressor, and the compressor and the valving in the box will move air and pressure into the different inflatable compartments to simulate a massage or to do a I can't remember the settings that are on mine. My daughter, she's an athletic trainer, said, "Hey, Dad, you need these," and that's what I got for Christmas. So
that's a great Christmas present. A gift that keeps on giving.
All right. So in the base model, you had compression, and initially you just basically inflate some really heavy duty Nomex balloons around your leg and put some compression on it. And then now they have the ability to kind of make some motion. What sets Rapid Reboot apart from the earlier versions of these products?
So that first version that I got introduced to while I was working with the football program at University of Georgia was a good model. It had higher pressures than some of the other ones on the market with the Rapid Reboot Classic unit did. And it was a good product, but there were a few durability issues with it. There were a few issues that it was good, but it wasn't great. It was just kind of comparable to everything else. The motor was all right. It was kind of boxy, big. It was a plug-in, and it did the job. It was good compression that athletes like the compression, but the durability-wise, it had a lot of plastic parts that were breaking. And that's really how I got to know the owners. I was fixing them every day and trying to figure out a way to make them better, and not afraid to tell them, hey, this is not working and causing issues, and I'm fixing it every day. We need something that's a little bit better. And that was kind of some of the feedback that started with them of how do we make this better. And so that first change they made was, instead of having clips on the hoses that connect the boots to the control unit, they switched it to magnets. So that there's no exposed parts, so you don't have to worry about clips that are breaking or having any issues. And then they kind of went from there. And as they were doing that, they went, there's got to be ways to make this even better. And so they used the funding from that original classic unit to fund the R&D of our regen unit, which we have it on the market now, and looking at, we want to have these similar pressures, but how do we make it better? On the classic unit, all the pressures were based on the motor were based on timers. So it would time out, it would try to fill up to the pressure, but as that timer wore out, kind of ended, then it would move on to the next chamber. And so it wouldn't sustain those pressures as well sometimes. They said, we need to make this better. So they created a motor that would hold and sustain pressures up to 200 millimeters of mercury, which is significant. That's about as high as you're getting a blood pressure cuff when you're filling it up, getting your blood pressure taken to the doctor's office. Everything else on the market would go up to 100 millimeters of mercury. And every time I used an athlete in it, they would always max out all those other products right there. And so they said, let's make this better, and then let's make it customizable. So they created a very simple interface on the unit that was all touchscreen, and everything on the control unit you could adjust. So instead of just plugging and playing and hitting start, picking the pressure, hitting start, and it being the same in every chamber, as you worked up distal to proximal, you could customize those pressures anywhere from 0 to 200 millimeters of mercury. So instead of it just being a recovery device, because you could customize it, there were other things that you could do with it, which is great. And that's kind of one of the things that I don't know if they really understood it when they created it, being engineers, but as a medical professional, as I started playing around with it, I'm like, hey, because I can customize these pressures, because I can, change my cycle speeds, or I can choose different modes from, a sequential or sectional compression, obviously all working distal to proximal, or a full compression where it fills the whole boot, or more peristaltic modes. There were different things I could do with it. I could use it to help with my swelling control and inflammation. I would read studies that showed that if you used higher pressures, then it's helping push out that extracellular fluid quicker and helping assist your lymphatic system quicker. And so if we can use those higher pressures, I can use this post-injury as well as just recovery. And so these were things that I was starting to play with and like as I saw this new unit. And these were kind of things that just working on that customization so people could find what suited them best. It actually ended up being more beneficial for me as a medical practitioner too.
Outstanding. So the company started back in 2016 is when they really kicked it all off?
That's when they kicked off, and then kind of 2017 is when they really started selling product.
And so distribution on this is through traditional suppliers of athletic training equipment, or are they going to market on their own?
We've gone to market on our own so far. We're working on establishing through some traditional sports medicine suppliers so that we have that method as well. Again, that's kind of one of the things that they brought me on to help with as I transitioned out of college athletics, is knowing those ways to help get our name out there and which ways athletic trainers try to purchase products and learn about new products. But most of it has been direct to customers.
Now, I assume initially it's like with anything else, it's your friends and neighbors, and they hear about it, and because they know you, they trust you. So the company started now you're in Utah, but the company started where?
Based in Utah as well.
Okay, so
and that's kind of how the owner and I got to know each other, is we had the same area code on our cell phones when we started talking, and makes that natural connection when you're from the same place.
All right, so I got to assume in the Utah area, so the western portion of the country, you're pretty good concentration of products in place.
We're pretty good, especially at, the local schools here in Utah. We've got a pretty good distribution there. BYU has a ton of our products.
Wow, that's a big
they have
school.
over 350 units on their campus
Holy
for their athletes to use, and almost every athlete has one they can take home and use at home.
Oh, man.
Utah has over 100. I think we've got around 25 units at Weber State University, similar up at Utah State University, and even some of the smaller colleges. And Salt Lake Community College track and field cross-country team has, I think, 12 different units that they use.
There you go. Very good. Well, congratulations. Sounds like things are going really well for you. So you got this company. It started up. You're doing well. They brought you on to bring things out. What was the gap that you were trying to fill when, you talked about it a little bit. You said, yeah, we think we can do this better. But what was the thought process of saying, well, not only can we do it better, but we can get it out on the market and get it to people?
Yeah. So the idea was really, again, trying to get better, but what do we need to be better in?
Hmm.
And I've kind of mentioned it briefly earlier. With all my athletes with the products, they were always maxing them out on pressures at 100 millimeters of mercury, and the cycle speeds were a little bit slower. And so it would, take 4.5 minutes to work through a whole cycle working distal to proximal. And the goal with this is to assist lymphatic drainage, but also promote blood flow that's going to help with healing and regeneration. And so we wanted to find ways to kind of help promote all of that. So by making it different was increasing the cycle speed to about 1.5 minutes working distal to proximal, but also being able to slow that down to half or 3/4 speed. So again, what are your clinical goals and what are you trying to do is how I look at it as an athletic trainer. And then a lot of it is based on just what feel for the patient, the average person that's using it at home, because everyone's going to have a different feeling and what's going to work best for them. And so we wanted that variability so they could find what works best for them. And one of the things I found is most athletes, most patients, most even just weekend warriors like that pressure range of 120 to 150 millimeters of mercury, which you can't get with some of the other things on the market.
So you kind of did the Porsche approach. It's like anybody can build a car, but if you buy a Porsche, the connecting rods, there's only 4 sizes that you can get, and they're very, very, very accurate. And we're going to put in better connectors, and we're going to be able to take higher pressures and greater cornering speed. And so instead of just building a car, or in your case, a boot, you went the Porsche route and you said, okay, I'm going to build a better boot that performs better, that can perform at higher levels, and it's paying off for you.
Yeah, it has been paying off. That's a good analogy that I hadn't thought of it that way, but I really like it. And it's been paying off well. And a lot of it is just when people try it, then that's when it really helps them kind of buy in, because you can hear about these theories and how it works to research and stuff, but it's when you get your athletes trying it, when practitioners try it themselves, that it really makes a difference.
Well, and that's where that whole quality argument gets into it, because I mean it's that, oh, hey, look, I can buy this on Amazon or whatever and it looks just like his, and I'm going to get it, and then you get it and it's crap, and you inflate them once and the seams start popping out and the hardware starts falling off. It's like, oh yeah, there's a reason you might pay more for a Porsche than a Pinto.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, that our prices tend to be a little bit more on our base prices, but when you explain to people you get what you pay for, that we're a higher quality product and this is why, and we build our systems here in the U.S. compared to doing mass marketing overseas, it makes a difference.
Your body is the most important instrument you have to perfect your craft, and it's important to keep it in top form. As To The Bone's official recovery partner, Rapid Reboot Recovery Products can help you do this. With their best-in-class pneumatic compression devices, you can customize your recovery settings to help your body perform its best. Get yours today with the To The Bone 15% discount code. That's right. Visit rapidreboot.com, RAPIDREBOOT.com, and enter the code ToTheBone15 to get your 15% discount. Oh, outstanding. All right. So now that you've got a good base out there, you've got 350 units at one school alone, what kind of feedback are you getting from the physical therapists and the medical professionals that are using your stuff in their clinics?
Getting a lot of really good feedback. Again, once they try it, once their athletes start trying it and saying, hey, we prefer this over others, it makes a big difference. And we're starting to switch schools over, different medical practitioners over. And again, I think one of the things that's been nice for the company and for me as an athletic trainer is having worked in those settings. Here's some different ways to kind of think outside the box, outside of a recovery that you might have only used them before. And so I've kind of been able to bring that in and say, hey, here's some ways you could use it for. Here's some settings and parameters that I've set up as a place to start for a knee effusion or an ankle effusion, and how you can work with those, or kind of in that acute or subacute phase post-injury, not just in a recovery setting. And as people start kind of thinking outside the box and realizing that and adding, thermotherapy or cryotherapy to it, they're like, okay, there's uses for this that we maybe didn't think of before because we're just so focused on the recovery aspect.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you kind of took my next question. I was going to say, what's next for Reboot? But it sounds like you've already you got it identified and shared it with us a little bit. So what's when we're going to talk a little bit about your background in athletic training, but before we get there, what do you see as the way to incorporate Rapid Reboot into the recovery routine for maximum effectiveness?
Um, no, one way I like to look at it is a research study that I read about a year ago that is really stuck in my mind, where they had a group of marathoners that after a marathon, they had half the group do a recovery massage
Mm-hmm.
and half the group do pneumatic compression. They did some subjective outcome measures,
Mm-hmm.
and they found that the subjective outcome measures and results were virtually the same
Mm.
between the two groups. And so if you look at it that way, massage is a great one. It's always kind of been seen as a little bit of a gold standard in helping targeted
Mm-hmm.
lymphatic drainage, helping push out any of that metabolic waste, extracellular fluid. But compression is a good way to do it where you can have this unit at home, use it on your own time, not have to have a massage therapist on retainer. And so if you can have that way to take care of your body, and you get people like marathoners or weekend warriors or whoever it may be that's serious about taking care of their body, about working out and exercising, this is a great way to have something at home to help assist that and help your body feel better so you can continue to perform at the levels you want to. Because no
Outstanding.
one likes being sore.
Yeah. So your massage was basically your control group that said this is the standard of the industry. This is how marathoners recover. Oh, look here now we can take the entire team, put them in boots, and instead of having to wait to get a masseuse to them, you can do the entire team at once, or you can send them home and
Yeah,
let them do it on their own.
exactly. I mean, this is a product that for anyone, they can buy it and they can sit on their couch and watch TV, or they can play their video games and Call of Duty. Or I've had athletes that told them, get on these while you're doing your homework at the end of the day.
Well, there you go. There you go.
So, so for the cost effective aspect of it, it is obviously a little bit more expensive. How do you have any tips for athletic trainers to negotiate getting some more of these units than maybe putting in the money to hire another athletic trainers? I'm not taking away athletic trainer
Yeah.
jobs, obviously, but how do you articulate that to your superiors on why you need it and how to, get around the cost?
So a couple different things. One, as an athletic trainer, I like to take care of my athletic trainers myself. And so I'm always going to work with athletic trainers within their budgets to try to find them the best way to help them get what they need, whether it be our classic unit or our regen unit or working out deals that we can work with them, because I know I've worked at different levels and I know how budgets can be affected. So finding a way that we can work with each group, athletic trainer individually and what their resources are. Another one I like to use is a cross country, community college cross country team that I know. They've won national championships, and their community college only has 2 athletic trainers for the whole community college, but they have multiple campuses around the area. And so at their campus where they train, they don't have an athletic trainer readily available. They use a little bit of the physical therapy assistant program to help them out when they need to. But their coach told me, he said he sees Rapid Reboot as their athletic trainer in some cases. If they're sore, if they have any issues, make sure you're getting in the boots first, and then let's address it from there and see. And he says most of the time that helps.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to take away from athletic trainers, but I like to look at it as a way to offload athletic trainers, because it's a way that it's something that's simple to teach your athletes how to use on their own. It's a safe modality that anyone can use at home, so you don't have to sit there and watch them as they use it. You can teach them how to use it. You can have them in a corner. They can go do it on their own while you're working with someone else. So it's a way to kind of offload. Or if you get multiple systems, then it's a way to help improve your work-life balance, where instead of having athletes waiting for 2 or 3 units to rotate through after practice, they're able to go home and do it, and so you're able to leave 30 minutes earlier. And we all know how much a difference 30 minutes can make in athletic training, getting home a little early.
Definitely.
Well, and again, it comes down to things are going to get. I think we're going to see over the next several years. There's going to be a whole lot of microscopes put on budget lines, and so everybody is going to be looking at how do we get the maximum effective treatment for a reasonable amount of money. And when we look at that, God knows I want my athletic trainer to make as much as she possibly can, because otherwise she's going to be back in the bedroom that we're keeping for her. But realistically, like you said, especially in some of the smaller colleges, you just cannot afford the number and the amount of labor it takes to, let's say you got a 12-man running team, and that's 12 massages, and then you look at even just the wear and tear on an individual. If you do 12 massages and you don't have, the reinforcement tools and stuff to keep your fingers from the joints in your fingers wearing out, it's really hard on the athletic trainers. So if you can have a knowledgeable athletic trainer who understands how to treat the people with the proper tools, that can be a whole lot more economically justifiable for an organization, as opposed to, let's get a whole bunch of athletic trainers that are going to work really hard for that 1.5, 2 hours after the practice when they got to get these guys through recovery. And then what do we do with them for, the rest of the 6 hours that would be fair to pay them? I mean, there's that weird pitchiness where you guys are like just hammering it. And then you're like, well, everybody went home. What do I do now? I can't make a living on these 2 hours that I work. I got to go work at another school now.
Yeah. So it's a nice, there's a give and take to it all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it all works out.
All right.
You can catch up on the paperwork.
Yeah,
right. Yes, exactly. All the administrative tasks you don't have time to do because athletes are there.
Yeah.
Hey listeners, ever find yourself on the sidelines needing that one crucial item? Look no further than Nexus Sports Medicine. Nexus is your go-to partner for creating comprehensive medical kits and accessories tailored for athletic trainers in any setting. From high school fields to professional arenas, Nexus has you covered. These kits are designed by an athletic trainer with meticulous organization, ensuring that you're always prepared, no matter the situation. Stay ahead of the game with Nexus Sports Medicine and keep your athletes safe and thriving. Check out Nexus Sports Medicine at nexus-sportsmed.com. That's Nexus, NEXUS-sports, SPORTSMED.com to find out more and get your perfect gear today.
So one of the things we talk about on this show is how people got into athletic training and where they came from. So we've talked a little bit about what you're doing now, some pretty exciting technology, some really cool things. But how did you, David Jack, end up in athletic training?
So I was interested from an early age in athletics. I always loved athletics, but I was never the most gifted athletically. I was never that one that was making the all-star teams or tryout teams. I was the effort kid.
Yeah.
100% I was the effort kid. I wasn't the most talented, but I tried hard. I worked hard. I never gave up.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I kind of started realizing I was interested in medicine. I had, family members that had been physicians or general surgeons, different relatives. And I was interested in medicine, but I never wanted to be a physician. I never had interest in being a physician. And so I knew I wanted to do sports medicine, but didn't really know what that entailed. And I had an injury running cross country in high school with chondromalacia patella. I was going to physical therapy, and he kind of asked me as a sophomore in high school, hey, what are you looking to do? And I said, yeah, I want to do sports medicine. And he was the one that first introduced me to the profession of athletic training and what athletic training was, and mentioned that and physical therapy could be good routes to go. And so I started looking into athletic training a little more. I took a sports medicine class in high school in my junior year, learned how to tape an ankle, and I started shadowing our high school athletic trainer. So for basketball games, I would kind of shadow them. I'd pick their brains, ask questions, did an internship as a high schooler in a physical therapy clinic where I was able to learn modalities and different therapeutic exercises, which is great. Senior year of high school, I was actually the kid when our athletic trainer wasn't there. One of my teammates had a sprained ankle, and the coach tried to tape him up, and it was garbage. And so he brought tape out to me, and I actually taped his ankle in full pads on the sideline. So I was that kid that knew I was going to do. Or our track team, when the athletic trainer couldn't be there, he trusted me to tape ankles. He'd see me do some stuff. And so I kind of learned early and took initiative to learn these different things. And then I worked in a physical therapy clinic as an aide and an exercise specialist for a couple of years outside of college, or outside of high school, and in my first couple of years of college, to gain that experience in those things, and decided to go into athletic training. So I entered the athletic training program at the University of Utah, and it was great. I learned a lot of things, and I realized once I got into it how much of the rehab component that I'd done in physical therapy clinics was involved in athletic training, that we got to do, post-surgical rehabs. That was part of our practice act that we were allowed to do and our skills. And so I really got involved, and I loved it. I did rotations with football at Utah, with the swim and dive team, at a local NAIA school with lacrosse, did some high school stuff, and then spent my whole senior year working football at the University of Utah, and I loved it. And then I worked really hard for people, and they were able to get me an internship going into my senior year in the NFL with the San Diego Chargers. And get to spend a summer with them was a great opportunity. And it's, as I got into it more and more, I'm like, this is what I want to do. It's every day is different. We get to do the rehabs, and I get to participate and help even as a student in some amazing rehabs where my preceptors allowed me to think critically and to write rehabs. And if there's big progressions, they'd write it and I'd run the athlete through it. And then we kind of transitioned. They'd write half, I'd write half, to I'd write it, the rehabs, for a couple of weeks. And they just would look it over and make sure it looked good and kind of check in on me every once in a while. It would give me a lot of autonomy to do that.
That's awesome. I can totally relate. I was cross country skiing was one of the sports I was involved in. And what the coach would say is like, man, you've got really good form. Could you do it faster? So I was not winning any races. But tell me a little bit about how did you decide on the University of Utah for your athletic training scholarship?
So I was I'm a fourth generation student at the University of Utah. So that ran in the blood a little bit.
You had
but
no
I was
choice.
Also but I was also open. I applied to different places. I did apply at Brigham Young University, even though I was not a fan of BYU growing up, just from a sports standpoint.
Right.
And I applied to school actually in Indiana, the University of Evansville, that had a dual PT-AT program that was combined throughout the whole thing. It was a 5-year program to do your ATC and your MPT. And so I thought that was really interesting looking at that. And as I went and visited the schools, I just felt like talking with the people at the University of Utah, meeting with advisors, hearing about what the programs were, that it was just the best fit for me.
All right.
So I ended up there.
So once you got there, tell us, give us the pitch. Why University of Utah? Why would a student really like studying athletic training at the University of Utah?
So I will give the caveat that it's a little bit different now as everything's moved to a master's program from an undergraduate program. So I'm not as detailed in what all those master's programs entail. But I really liked even going to, further on in my career where I was working at places that had curriculum programs. One of the things I really liked there is how their class schedule was set up, how you worked through the body into areas that were, focusing on areas where you could evaluate them that were maybe not as detailed, but quote unquote simpler to do those evals, and that you would see a little bit more. They had everyone. I really liked the fact that it was a 5-semester program. So you started spring of your sophomore year, that you had to apply, that it was still selective, where I think we had 20 in our class, in our cohort, and they probably had 60 people apply for the program. So there was competitive to get in, but I liked that it was a 5-semester program. So you got a little bit more detailed learning in some of the things. And I liked how they had their rotation set up. As I talked to the advisors and the program directors, that I liked how they had that all set up to go in, where you had spring football kind of eased you in that spring. Everyone worked spring football, but you were only going in 2 days a week instead of every day, all day. And so it kind of helped ease you into the profession a little bit more as you learned more and more about it.
Outstanding. All right. So go ahead.
Oh. So you made it to Georgia. I'm assuming you worked with Ron Corson, I'm assuming.
I did. So I did in between Utah. I went to Fresno State for grad school.
Okay.
And worked with Tony Hill, who was their head football athletic trainer. And they actually only had one full-time athletic trainer assigned to football at Fresno State while I was there. So as a graduate assistant, I got some phenomenal experience, especially some different extenuating circumstances that let me step in at different times and kind of take charge for a little bit of time, even though I still had that umbrella. And it was great experience in that. And then I spent a year with the Indianapolis Colts as an intern after I got my master's degree. And then ended up at the University of Georgia with Ron Corson for 7 years. And he's still a great friend. I actually just saw him this last weekend at the Emergency Care and Sport Conference out in
Oh,
Atlanta.
yeah. And then you made it to University of California, or Southern California. How did you decide to transfer from Division I athletics to being a partnership director at Rapid Reboot?
So that's a great question. What it came down to is I loved what I did. I spent, over 7 years with Ron at the University of Georgia with football. And then I wanted to move up in the career. My goal was to be a head athletic trainer for football in Division I. And I got that opportunity to do that at Southern California. And it was a great experience. I was there 1 month with Clay Helton as the head coach, and then he got fired, and we had an interim for a few months, and then Lincoln Riley came in. And I worked with Russ Romano, who had been there he's been there about 30 years as well, almost as long as Ron's been at Georgia. And so got to kind of work with some great people. And I loved it, and I loved what I did. The more and more I got into it, the more the grind increased. As you move up in the career, the responsibilities increased. And even though I worked with great people, it was really long days. I mean, even off season, I was putting in 16-hour days frequently, just based on how our schedule was, and wanting to help take some of the pressure off some of the staff. And, as the head athletic trainer, I felt like it was my responsibility to be there more, to be able to give them a little bit more time and respect their time a little bit more. Some of the assistants that worked with me. It just got to the point where it was a lot. That college athletics was becoming more like the pros and some of the politics and things that were going on, but with the college schedule. And so that just lengthened out the day. You still have to worry about recruiting on the weekends. And as much as I love talking to the recruits and, again, helping out the athletes, it just got to the point where I decided, there's more to life than just work, and more than life than just football. And my passion in athletic training really lied with football. And so I decided it was time to kind of make a change, try to slow down a little bit. I'd eventually like to have a family myself, and that was a big, factor in determining if I want to have a family. I need to have a social life so that I can meet people and eventually find a spouse. And that's a big factor. And it's kind of funny when I told my coaches that, they're like, "We get it. We understand." They know what they'd given up and what this entails. And I had many of them say, "We're surprised this doesn't happen more often." And I had some that straight up said, "We get it. We make a heck of a lot more money than you, and you're here more than we are year round." Yeah. And so it came to that point where I decided it was time to step aside and change something up in my life. But I still wanted to be involved in athletic training. I spent too much time, too much work for my degree and in my career to give it all up and just go something else. So when I decided to leave, I took some time to kind of figure out what the next step was. I actually took a month and just enjoyed LA and all the things touristy that I hadn't had time to do as a employee at Southern California, and then decided to kind of come be closer to family. While I was at Southern California, we'd bought a bunch of Rapid Reboot units. That's where I'd really gotten introduced to the regen system, kind of that top of the line system. And so I got, still knew the owner and some of the people there. And shortly after I left USC, again, no job prospects, just like, let me kind of take a couple months and figure out what the next step is. He called me up and said about something. And I said, I'm not at USC anymore. I'm happy to give you some information on who to talk to or whatever. And he said, "What's your next plan?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, when you get to Utah to be close to family, come talk." And they recruited me to come work with them because I think they saw the value as well as I did in having a medical professional on staff, where it was all engineers and salespeople, but it was a medical device. So to be able to come in and provide that kind of that viewpoint, and having used it clinically and knowing how the product could be used, having used it with my athletes, having that firsthand experience, but also the medical background of being able to talk the talk with medical professionals about what benefits our product has. And so it ended up being just a great fit as we had that conversation. It was pretty quick that they offered me a job, and it's been a great fit between working with great people and a product I believe in, but also being able to be close to family, have a social life. I mean, last year I was able to go to Europe twice during the year, including once in October. And
Nice.
I never would have been able to go in October. And the fact that I was able to plan vacations and not have to wait on a coach to determine what our schedule was going to be, or, we've got a game that week, or it's football season, I can't do anything, I'm off limits. I could think, hey, let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah.
Raise the bar in 2025. Complete your BOC certification maintenance requirements early. Don't forget that 2025 is a reporting year for athletic trainers. Are you on track to complete your BOC certification maintenance requirements? Find out today by logging into your BOC profile at bocatc.org/BOC360. That's right, it's time, and this year is the year to renew your certification maintenance requirements. Check it out at bocatc.org/BOC360.
All right, so we talked about what was happening, what you're doing right now, Rapid Reboot. We talked about where you came from. Tell us a little bit about the future. Pull out the crystal ball there. Give her a rub. Tell us, what is the future for recovery technology in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see as the emerging trends in sports medicine and or rehabilitation?
That's an interesting question because I don't think we can ever really truly know where it's going. I look at 10 years ago, and you were first getting your really first compression products out, where you only had a couple of units at every school of compression units at every team. And now they're getting to the point where they're having 20, 30, 40, or BYU that has 350 units. So they're becoming more accessible. And those first compression units on the market were $5,000. And now ours sits over a little over 1,000. And so there's a huge difference in that. And I think there's constantly new things coming out. I just got introduced to new products last week at this emergency care and sport. And I think with recovery technology, the biggest thing is you've got so much you can do, and you kind of have that shotgun approach of let's throw a lot of things at it. It's finding what works best for each individual athlete. And as much as I want to say compression therapy is what works best for every athlete, there's going to be some that it doesn't work for as well, that they don't feel the benefits because everyone's body is a little bit different. And you're seeing a lot more trends in, with compression therapy, it's becoming a lot more mainstream publicly, where, 10, 15 years ago, you saw 1 or 2 units in the universities and the pro teams, but no one had them. You didn't see much more than that publicly. The public didn't really see them and use them. And it's kind of the same thing with the cold plunges, that you're seeing the public embrace that a lot more now, even though you've had those hot tubs and cold tubs in your training facilities for years.
We just use the lakes. We just use the lakes.
Exactly.
Come on.
A lot of people out here are doing the same thing. And heck, even in California, when we'd have the beach days with the team, we tell them all go jump in the ocean because it's still cold in the Pacific Ocean there. That's nature's cold tub.
Yeah, I was down there by San Diego, outside the Hotel Del, training on that strand with some friends of mine in green underwear. And cold water in January. Holy
It is.
cow.
And it's still cold in the middle of August, too. It just feels a little more refreshing in August.
All right, so we don't know which way the future might be going. So the Rapid Reboot at this point, you're just concentrating on evolving the product to make it better and better and better. And you said there's a couple of different levels of product. Tell us a little bit about that, what you're doing there with the different levels of product.
So we have the classic system that is kind of the original one I was telling you about, that we've made some modifications to make it more durable and better. It's a good kind of just plug and play model. There's not a lot to it. It's very simple. You select your time, you select your pressure, and you hit play. Plug it in and go. It's only plugged in. And then we've got the regen model that, like I said earlier, the motor has the pressure sensors in it, so it's hitting your pressure. It's got the multiple cycle times that you can choose from, 4 modes of compression. I forgot to mention it has a deflate feature too, so it sucks the air out for you at the end instead of having to roll all the air out of them.
That's helpful.
Huge when you're on the road.
That's a big, yeah.
You're not, and then as long as if they're sweaty, obviously you're going to wipe them down with a wipe or anything like that. But if they're wearing pants or something in between, you can pull them on and off just like a pant leg and not have to worry about the zippers, which is nice. And another thing with our boot attachment that's really great is it has a double zipper built into it. So if you have a bigger girth quad or thigh, you're able to change that zipper without having to get a whole different boot attachment.
Oh, there we go.
So it's got all those features that are really nice. So based on it, whether you're just trying to do, like I said earlier, just your recovery, or you're trying more for swelling control, edema control, using it more clinically, there's those options that you can use with it. And then we have an app as well where you can create as many saved protocols as you want that you can upload to the system, which works real nice. If you have a bunch of athletes coming in for different protocols, you can have them saved in your phone, and you can just connect it to the unit, hit that protocol, and it updates everything instead of having to go change every parameter individually.
Nice.
And we're also developing kind of a model in between the two that we're hoping will be out in the next year or so. It's got kind of the combined features where it's got better pressure sensors, so the motor works stronger, it holds those pressures better, but it may not have all all the complete customization that our top model has right now. So that it's a little bit more, again, kind of going back to those budgets, a little bit more price conscious product with still some of the great features and pressures that we have that make us different.
Well,
Nice.
and it's, I mean, it goes back to, product design. There's like, I look at new cars now and phones and everything. And it's like, you know what? I spend 80% of my time on 20% of the buttons.
Yep.
So I don't need most of those buttons, and I don't even know what most of them do. But the ones I use them all the time. So
Exactly.
yeah. So yeah, sometimes the feature rich stuff is like, oh my gosh, I don't even have time to read the book to figure out what that's doing.
Check out clinicallypressed.org/courses for access to free CEUs for athletic trainers. Register and enroll in as many CEUs as you'd like. New CEUs coming on a monthly basis, including from your host of To the Bone with Shelby Daly. Get ahead of your CEUs by listening to podcasts and getting credit for it. Clinically Pressed Company, making complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org.
So when it comes to using the product, there's got to be some things that kind of took your breath away. Went, what? They're doing what with our product? What was the most surprising or unique treatment that you saw somebody using Rapid Reboot for that is legal and you can share on the podcast?
Great qualifiers there. One that was actually I liked last year was a retired athletic trainer that he talked with his surgeon about, and he used it about a week out of hip replacement. He had a bilateral hip replacement, and he was talking with his doctor about it, and he had the system he was waiting to use, and his doctor's like, yeah, we should have been using that right away after surgery. And so using that, and he said it made a phenomenal difference in how quickly he was able to get his swelling down. That with our hip attachment, I had never really even thought of it for that use. Like I thought of, our boots and our shoulder with that, but I didn't think of hip replacements because most of the time you're not thinking that with your athletic populations that you're working with as an athletic trainer. But I thought that was a really unique use. And I've seen a few other off-label uses that people have used, but we won't go there right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that may be one of the places that, is a growth opportunity for Rapid Reboot. Is if I am amazed at the number of people I know that have had a joint replaced, whether it be a knee or, like you said, the hips, and the fact that you actually address the hip. There is a mature and fairly well-moneyed population that is having these surgeries and has the ability to buy good, high quality, higher dollar products for their home use.
Yeah. And so we're seeing a little bit of that, and that's more word of mouth that we see that through and talking to people. We haven't gone heavy marketing that yet. But the nice thing is we are also an FSA and HSA approved device. So we see a lot of people using those funds to help with it, especially at the end of the year when it's use it or lose it on those FSA funds.
There we go. Nicely done. Nicely done. All right. So hip replacement with Rapid Reboot. Not where I thought I was going to end up today.
No, but it worked, and he raved by it, and he said it helped him get on the golf course a little bit quicker, which is always good. So
there you go. Outstanding.
Yep.
Now, so Shelby, I know you were the one who introduced me to compression boots. How did it come up in your professional life? Where did you start with it?
Well, I mean, it's kind of trickled into my practice through the past few years. It was just always the point of cost was kind of the biggest hang up. So you'd have one, but it was always kind of like, oh, those are just for the emergency athletes that really, really need it and are having a hard time recovering. As I've moved through different organizations, it became a little bit more accessible. Still kind of hard to move a whole soccer team through 2 or 3 units, as a part of the full recovery programming for the team. But, it helped out with the athletes that just need that little extra edge to get them on the field and feeling a little bit better the next day. And then obviously my husband had a partial knee replacement. So not that we had a unit right after that surgery, but it definitely has helped, when he's having just kind of a crummy day with how his knee feels, he jumps in one. And now that he's retraining in the gym, I guess, it's always good to have when he has his hard lift days, and when he starts running again, he'll probably be on it every single day.
Well, and so the ones that I ended up with, it was, it took me about 3 years to get a doctor who would. So when you get Jack, David, I'm going to tell you something. As you get older, they concentrate on a whole lot of different things than the athletic side of your health. And so for a period of about 3 years, it was like, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor because, and they would always go to, oh, well, you're getting to that age, and they would worry about the heart, and they'd worry about whether I was pre-diabetic and all the other stuff. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I came in because my knee hurts, and getting them to focus on that was really hard. And what it turns out is I've worn out the meniscus in one of my knees. So it's really hard to run on something like that, let me tell you. And I got in the compression boots, and I mean, the next step was everyone was saying surgery. It was like, okay, you're going to go until it hurts too much, and then we're going to replace your knee, and that's just the way life's going to go for you. But I put the compression boots on that Shelby got me, started using them, and I don't even really, except for direct impacts where you start getting heat, pressure on the knee that pushes the bones together and causes the pain. I don't even think about the knee being an issue anymore. I mean, it's helped that much. So I'm not even thinking about when I'm going to do surgery anymore. I've been thinking about, can I actually get back and start running again? Because I've had such good luck with the compression boots.
You're not the first one I've heard that from. I actually had a client about a year ago who's an official for high school basketball and football. And he's getting to the point where his knees were a little sore and getting up as he's gotten older, a little bit more worn down with his knees and his menisci and his cartilage. And he got a system, and he'd start using it every day after he officiated a game. He said it made a world of a difference where he wasn't thinking about that knee replacement quite as quickly or injections as much because he was able to get this done at home and take care of it.
Oh, yeah. It's like I said, I'm not a professional athlete, but I pretend to be when I'm in the no, it's like I said, just it's a really cool product that has, for me, has made a huge amount of difference. So now if you could give me one for my shoulder and my arm.
We do have shoulder and arm attachments too.
Oh my gosh.
It goes all the way up the arm, covers the shoulder real well, over the pec, and kind of that posterior shoulder.
Let's see. Oh, dang, my
When's
birthday's
your birthday?
November. I'm trying to think. Oh, my anniversary's coming up. Maybe I can get something for my anniversary.
Yeah, Easter.
There you go.
All right.
Late Valentine's, early Easter, St. Patrick's Day coming up.
See, that's it. I got married on St. Patrick's Day. It was a party, let me tell you.
Oh, I bet it was.
All right. So, Shelby, I'm seeing a note on the bottom right here by contact. So, obviously, David, if somebody wanted to contact Rapid Reboot, how would they do that?
They can contact me directly at djack@rapidreboot.com, which is my email address. You can always feel free to reach out via our DMs on @Rapid Reboot at Instagram and social media, or just going to rapidreboot.com. If you figure you want to talk to me specifically, you can kind of reach out to our customer service and say, hey, we heard David on the To the Bone podcast. We'd like to talk to him. They can kind of put you in contact with me as well.
All right. So what I'm looking at is on my notes, I've got this thing under the contact. Is that a real deal?
Yes, it is.
Oh, well, there we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you say To the Bone 15, there's a 15% discount on the Rapid Reboot. So, if you got a birthday coming up, an anniversary, or you just got knees that need some help, 15% discount, To the Bone 15 when you get a hold of David Jack or through however you're going to contact Rapid Reboot, and you can get yourself a heck of a deal for seeing it here on To the Bone. David?
You can use that on rapidreboot.com as well and type that code in. It'll work there too. Perfect.
All right. Well, David, thank you so much for being with us. Definitely reach out to us if you got new products or new ideas or things that are going on, or just if we haven't talked to you for a while, we'd love to have you back on. Tell us about what's going on with you. All right?
Sounds great. Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Shelby. Appreciate it.
You bet. Well, that's going to do it for this version of To the Bone, the podcast about everything athletic training. Anything coming up we need to know about, Shelby?
Got a whole deck of people I'm interviewing in the next few weeks. So
all right,
some cool stuff coming
And I
up.
understand you were actually talking to a bank at one point about how to set up business accounts for athletic trainers. How's that coming along?
Tomorrow we are doing the discovery call. So
there you go.
Glory Bank.
All right, so there you go. We'll see if the 100% online bank is, I think, what they call themselves, and they actually set up have business accounts for the young professionals who are trying to do things. So look for that coming up on To the Bone. Once again, David Jack, you've been a gentleman. It's been a great time talking to you. We look forward to hearing more about your products in the future, sir.
Thanks, all. Appreciate it.
You bet. We'll see you next time right here on To the Bone.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.